Just jumping in and reading what it says in there, I am going to tell you about different ways that I remember how to remember the stuff about Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. So on page 2, it says Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act 2010. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you highlight, but only highlight the words I tell you to highlight. Don't just like when I say highlight, start just going crazy with your highlighter, because the goal of this is to say, okay, when you open up your book and you read the highlights, it's the sentence, the whole sentence. So we're taking out the words that you don't need to study. You don't need to study that and there and all those good words, okay? So highlight July of 2010. The United States Congress passed the highlight Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. The stated purpose of this far-reaching financial legislation is highlight, promote financial stability by improving, highlight, accountability and transparency, and highlight financial system. Drop down to where it says the 2 titles of Dodd-Frank. Highlight 2 titles, highlight Dodd-Frank, Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010 with the greatest impact on the mortgage industry are highlight Title 10, and then highlight Consumer Financial Protection Act, and then highlight Title 14, the Mortgage Reform and Anti-Predatory Lending Act. Title 10 created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So highlight Title 10, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And from now on, when you see me say Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I will say CFPB. So when I say CFPB, that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You guys, I ask a lot of my students, like, what was on your test? What did you see on the test? What did I not? They said everything I say is on the test. But to make sure that you guys know, some people get tests where it's just the laws, constant laws. And the people that get the ones with all the laws, it actually has the year. So you have to know the law, what it was for, and the year it was done, okay? Some people get tests that have no laws at all. Some people get a test that has, get this, just the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. So if it's just the loan estimate and the closing disclosure, those are super easy and I go over them. I also do have a YouTube page, which I go over them very thoroughly also. So if you guys love listening to my voice over and over, my YouTube page is Making Money in Real Estate with Sharon Butler. And you can listen to me over and over when you're bored, I guess. But they seem to help a lot. So anyways, so Title 10, we said, is the Consumer Financial Protection Act, and Title 14 is the Mortgage Reform and Anti-Predatory Lending Act. Title 10 created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. What you need to know about them is this. If you don't know, if they ask you a question about who regulates this, if they ask you who regulates it and you don't know, go with the CFPB. Because they regulate about 97% of everything. Because what happened was they had 7 regulatory agencies that were all regulating all different things. And unfortunately, nobody was doing anything, or they weren't doing a very good job at regulating. So what they did was they took all 7 of those people, put them into one big funnel, which is the CFPB, and the CFPB is the one that regulates most of everything. So you need to know that. And you need to know, if they say who created the CFPB, Dodd-Frank, okay? So Title 10 created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as an independent entity within, highlight, the Federal Reserve. Effective July 2011, the rulemaking and enforcement authority over many of the consumer financial laws were transferred to the CFPB. So they had those 7 different agencies, and they took all their rules and regulations and transferred them over to the CFPB. The CFPB didn't have to write all new rules and regulations. They got theirs and they renumbered them, okay? So now I'm going to give you kind of like how I remember things, because you guys, if I can do this, you can do it. I'm not any better than any of you, and I did the same class and the same test, and I made it through, so you guys can too. So the Truth in Lending Act. So what I always do is I tell you to take a pen, and then where it says Truth in Lending, make the N a capital N. Yes, you can write in your book. After you make it a capital N, you're going to make an arrow to the end of the sentence. And what you're going to do is you're going to make that N turn sideways, and now it's a Z. So you remember that it's Truth Z Lending and it's Regulation Z. So the N turns sideways. I wish I had a whiteboard. Put in a request. I already did like 20 times. It's okay. All right, so the Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act. So you're going to remember Truth Z Lending is Regulation Z. And then Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act, RESPA, I want you to cross out the S. Every time you see the word RESPA, I want you to cross out the S because I want you to remember that right at the end, Regulation X. I always call it REXPA. And back up for 1 second, the truth in lending one. I want to make sure that you guys know that the truth in lending one, whenever they ask you about like an advertising, you know, what regulates advertising, truth in lending, because you have to tell the truth in all your advertising. That's how I remember that. Okay. Fair Credit Reporting Act. Okay. This is the one with right next to it, adverse action. You have to know that the Fair Credit Reporting Act is what started where we have to do an adverse action letter. And don't worry, we're going to go over it again and again, and you guys will know everything, okay? So, Fair Credit Reporting Act is, like I just said, it's the adverse action letter. And then you have the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction Act, which is FACTA. And next to that one, I want you to write identity theft. So FACTA came out because we had a lot of identity theft going on. And how I remember that is, so I don't know how old you guys all are, but like when I was watching TV, I don't know how long ago, it was that dog, the Dare dog. And he would say, give me the facts, give me the facts. And he would do it like he was barking. And I'm like, I always think of him because he's a detective and he's looking out for identity theft. FACTA, give me the facts, okay? So I know I say things that are kind of crazy, but it will make you remember these things. Yes? An extra pen? Did you say you wanted to be a loan officer? I'm just kidding. Here, can you catch? I hope so. Wait. Hey, that was pretty good, huh? Let me know if that one works.
Thank you.
You really, 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 really need a highlighter, you guys, on Wednesday and then on Monday and Wednesday again. I would buy those 4 packs and make sure you have those highlighters because let me tell you, if all you study is what I tell you to highlight, you will pass. I guarantee you will pass. You just got to do this, okay? Portions of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act related to highlight privacy. So I know my boss isn't around, so I always kind of joke around about Gramm-Leach-Bliley because the initials are GLB, which is gay, lesbian, whatever that is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a privacy act. So, you know, keep your own stuff private. That's how I remember it. Anyway, Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So highlight the word equal. And equal credit opportunity is you have to treat everybody equally, okay? That's an easy one, right? Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, HMDA. So HMDA is the section on your loan application where you mark, you know, are you male or female? What nationality are you? That's that little area on there, okay? The Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. And then the Home Ownership and Equity Protection Act, highlight equity protection, because that one's about high cost and high price loans. You guys got this. We can do it. It was my idea to do this 4-hour class here because it works. All right, and then the last one is the Secure and Fair Enforcement of Mortgage Licensing Act. And that one has to do with HERA, H-E-R-A. And how I remember that one is I go, some woman loan officer must have been really bad because it's her fault we have the Secure and Fair Enforcement of Mortgage Licensing Act, HERA, H-E-R-A.